Welcome to the Money Business Podcast. This is your host, Neal Regino. I'm here with Justin Pines. Justin is a good friend of mine, but also has been a business consultant and executive coach for many years. So wanted to bring him on here, talk a little bit about his background, talk shop about small businesses and mid-sized businesses, and see what kind of insight we can offer to our audience. So I guess to start, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've done in the realm of consulting and what that entails and some of your background?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's kind of funny. We've known each other like 25 years since we were in high school. I found a drawing of Neal's as I was cleaning out my dad's house the other day, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So he's an artist, in case you didn't know. So my background, I was a management consultant for 15 years. I worked for a specialty firm. We did all kinds of consulting, but largely focused around major transformations, scaling businesses, achieving breakthrough results, things that, when a leader comes into an organization, they have a picture in their mind or a kind of a notion that they can do something extraordinary, but actually getting all the people that they're coming in and managing or leading to believe that and see that and take action in that way requires something different. So that was a lot of the work I did for 15 years. I did it all over the world, Thailand, Saudi Arabia, Poland, South America, North America, all over the U.S., and it was incredibly rewarding. But as a function of that, I got to work with over 45 companies, from small businesses like, a couple 100,000 in revenue all the way to 46 billion. So, and at all levels, but mainly at the executive level. And, I think at this point I've worked with over 30 different CEOs. So I did that for 15 years. COVID was really weird and hard. And, we were doing virtual meetings with like teams in Africa at 1 a.m, all night. And then I'd turn around. I ran sales for them too. And so turn around and like lead my sales team all day. It got too much. So moved on, became a VP of sales and customer success at a events company. Really curated events, like 70 to 80 attendees. And my job was to bring revenue in, right? We brought sponsors and found companies that were a really good match that wanted to provide services to these attendees. We did that in like 6-7 different marketplaces. And, that was great. The money was awesome. But I burnt out real hard and at the same time had a pretty intense personal event and took a step back, started my own executive coaching practice about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And now more recently, as I moved to Baltimore, I am getting into the world of business advisory and brokerage.
Yep.
So representing business owners who are looking to sell, value their businesses, sell their businesses, and find a suitable buyer. Because one of the things I've noticed in my research, experience, and just talking to people is it really matters to business owners who is buying their business.
Yep.
It's not just how much money they get. In a lot of cases, it's actually who is taking it over and will they continue that legacy. So that's a brief history of my career.
And we're definitely, I already mentioned it, we're going to have you in to talk about the M&A side as that progresses. But what I'd like to talk about today is more about the actual business owner. Let's start with the small businesses. So I know you've, with your consulting practice that you've ventured out on, you've worked with some small businesses. But I think maybe what makes sense is to talk about the actual leadership style. What do you think gets in the way the most from somebody either getting out of their own way or reaching that next level in the business that they've already started? They're already bringing in some money, can't figure out where to go next, can't figure out how to reach their vision.
Yeah.
What do you think the challenges are there, if you want to talk
So
about
there's a couple, but, the industry term that gets thrown around is scalability, right? And the issue with scalability, it doesn't matter if you're the only person, you're solo and trying to get to 2 people or 3 people, or if you're 10 people trying to get to 20, or if you're 50 people trying to get to 100 or 100 people trying to get to 200, it doesn't matter because the premise is the same. what happens is you reach a point where you can no longer, like your limits have been maxed, right? And it's not feasible, although people try, to just keep doing more of what you have been doing. That won't work. You'll break or you'll hate it and want to
Yep.
get out or whatever. And so the smartest and most successful small business owners realize this and start understanding that they actually have to find a way to extract themselves. And you know, when you get into the valuations of it, like on the sales side, like companies are way more valuable if the owner isn't the one that's leading the charge, right? Because there's so much more risk and volatility. Like if that owner comes out and the company is just left with like a couple employees who've been there, like it's not the same, right?
Anybody who's listened to any of our podcasts, we talk about this almost every single one,
Yeah.
which is automation with your scale. How do you turn a business into a place where the owner no longer it works whether the owner's there or not?
Yeah.
And that's it's a big part of what we
Well,
talk
and
about.
it is, and it's the same thing again, like in these large corporations, right? I mean, some of these companies are baffling how big they are, right? They're the size of countries or cities, but it's no different in the sense that the leader's job is to create a team and a group of people and a culture there that can sustain itself, no matter who's at the helm or switching some people in and switching some people out. Now, that's not to say you're trying to create robots, right? Because there's a uniqueness and a diversity of perspective and all of that that's useful and important. But it's more about, yeah, I think athletics is a good, you know, it's not always apples to apples, but in the sense that like, you know, played soccer in college, right? And you know what that world is like, right? So every 4 years, the team turns over 100%,
Yep.
right? But how do you, as a coach, create a group of assistant coaches and have a process and a method, and understand what kinds of values that you're looking to recruit from, so that you get the right kinds of players who are going to fit together in the right ways.
Yeah.
Year in and year out, and you'll have some up years and you'll have some down years and everything in between. So
What do you think the most important parts or most important attributes to starting to create that automation or that
I would
scalability?
say the starting point, it's pretty simple, is really the values. Like the core values and the vision of where you want to see the company and where you want to see things go. Because nobody else that comes in is going to have that. And or they're going to come in and they might have their own, or they might have different values or whatever. And so as the leader and kind of the purveyor of the grounds there that you're tilling, that's vitally important and something that really only you can do. Like everybody else can do the jobs that you've done and you can
Yeah.
train them how to do that, but to set the company up for future success is really the job to do. And it's not so easy when you're also the one who's in the weeds and trying to do everything and managing customers and payments and marketing and delivering the service and.
Yeah.
So again, to come back to your original question, that's the main hiccup. I think a lot of people, they just get in their own way, or, you know, like I've been a very successful consultant, but that doesn't guarantee that I'm a great founder, right? When I started my own business a year and a half ago, I found myself in like almost paralysis mode because there were so many different, like, what market do I want to serve? What subset of people? What services do I want to offer? How do I want to talk about those services? I didn't want to like limit myself, and then everything felt, you know, if I pigeonholed it, felt too small and narrow. Like, and so I think as a founder, you have so many ideas, but you only have so much time. And so it's about matching those things up and following what feels right and feels good and is also lucrative.
I'd say to that point, that's something that I noticed that happens a lot is the focus isn't there. So,
It's hard.
a lot of people have a vision and then it changes and then it changes again, then it changes again. And I tell people all the time, get really good at one thing. And then, it's if if you master one thing, you master all things, right? The old Five Rings book,
Yeah.
if you know it.
Yeah, I
but
do.
but they all the time you'll see somebody have some success at one thing and then they think, all right, it's time to go to the next thing instead of mastering that first thing and staying laser focused till you hit that goal, then move to the next one. Um, what do you see? What's a consistent thing that comes up that gets in the way? What's the blind spots we talk about a lot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
what's a blind spot that you see often with business owners that possibly is stopping their growth?
So I think the biggest blind spot, and it's difficult to call it a blind spot because it's also part of the heart of their success,
Mm,
is their need to control,
yeah,
right? Like, and have their finger on the pulse, hand on the reins, whatever you want to call it. Because it's just when you've done something and you know how to do it and you've created a process that works, giving that over to somebody else and allowing them to do it, like, I was trying to working on a bunch of home. We just moved to Baltimore, and I have a million house projects. And like, if my kids or my wife wants to like help me do something, like I'm sitting there, I'm like, no, you're doing it wrong, right? But like, maybe they just need to figure out how to do it,
yeah,
right? I would be able to do it faster because
yeah.
I've done these things. I'm switching out outlets and putting up light fixtures and whatever. But then you're robbing people of that process of
Hmm.
learning and understanding it for themselves and making mistakes and getting clear about it because all you want is the output and the perfection. And so I think that really, you need to take a long-term approach, and it's harder to do, and especially the smaller the business you are, you don't have a ton of, well, whatever your financial position is, you don't have like a ton of runway to just
Hmm.
waste time and resources, right? You have to be effective and efficient. So I would say that that is one thing, is that need for control. And then the second thing is the importance of training.
Yeah.
um, I can't say that enough. Like, just allowing somebody to apprentice, or just inquire, and taking the time that they might need to get comfortable and get into it. Like at one of my previous companies, I was leading three different departments, but especially around sales. The owner, who I worked directly for, there were two owners, but this one guy who was more sales focused, he wanted the reps that I hired to hit the ground running and within 2 weeks, like, close
Yeah.
deals, right? And I was I went along with it without. I pushed back a little bit, but in retrospect, I should have pushed back a lot more
Yeah.
because
It's pretty unrealistic.
it's so unrealistic. I mean, I don't know, like, how long did it take you to get good at what you're doing,
So
right?
that
Like,
that's in our industry, it's about a 3 month turnaround time anyway. And so from meeting a person to having the conversation about their finances to then close, and that's, look, some, the larger they are, the more complicated they are, the longer it takes too. Some take years to actually, even if they're willing to move forward. So that part for us, it is a lot about patience in our industry, and it's I'd say a lot of the things that you talk about are things that we've experienced and things that we go through. Starting, and in fact, we had business owners on the last podcast that talked about wanting to train everybody from scratch instead of going out and hiring the talent in the industry to say if we can train them from the start and find the right person, they're going to be exactly what we want. And our industry is kind of the same, where they always say a brand new person as an advisor, even though it takes a long time, it takes a lot of work, they're going to be the best ones because you train them the right way. They're going to be loyal to your company. Um, but I still want both personally. And
yeah,
the giving up control is a hard thing for somebody in our industry, especially when you're really good,
yeah,
to because you don't trust anybody else to do it. And that's been a big learning curve for me over the last few years to really learn how to give different people the ability to thrive without micromanaging.
yeah.
And
It's a balance of patience and high standards,
mhm,
right? And excellence. And I think where I've seen it go wrong is allowing kind of the emotional, like, you're doing this wrong, like, that part.
mhm,
It is a bit like parenting, right? Like, having to figure out how to teach somebody without making them feel wrong for making mistakes, and allowing them to grow and have room for it. And the kinds of people who do really well are the ones who are curious about it, right? So you don't have to walk on eggshells. I've also found it more effective, like as a leader or founder or whatever, to just be like, listen, like I want to have an open dialogue. Like that's the kind of culture I'm creating. If you do something incorrectly, I want to let you know. I'm not trying to knock you down. If you feel like I'm, dismissing you or talking down to you, like tell me, because that's not what I want to.
Yeah.
That's not what I want you to feel. I want you to be as good as you possibly can. And so that's the goal here, right? And hopefully you're working and hiring somebody who has that shared value.
Yeah, for sure. Um, the on the growth part. So it also, one thing I was just thinking about was when you start to, especially when every client matters for a lot of smaller company where they're like, if we lost this client, we'd be done, right? So they're really trying to micromanage that part and make sure that that relationship is always held at the highest regard. But what do you think when it comes to that point where, okay, they small business starting to make a couple 100,000, maybe even get to a million, started to have a couple of hires? um, do you have any parts that you talk to your owners or executives about that are like the most important hires that they need or the next steps that they need to take? What do you think is the most important that leads to success?
So I think, I used to lead a program called the Executive Challenge course when I was at my consulting company. And there was this one concept that I loved. I absolutely loved it. It was called the operating states. And it essentially it kind of documented, and not just like the physical part, but like the emotional part of what a company and or anything goes through, like the stages that something goes through from inception to fruition to like actually happening, right? And then what it takes to manage it. And so a business or a project or initiative is the same. So initially it's formulation, right? You have an idea, there's excitement, like you want to do something big, you got to get the people, the team around it, you got to get the idea crystallized, you got to form roles, you got to like get clear what the work is to do and farm that out, right? And then you got to figure out how you're going to come together about it and communicate. So that's formulation. The second is the hardest phase and where most things die. It's called concentration, because that is, to your point about focus, right? That concentration is then taking that formulation stage and being like, our sole mission is to create a bridge from this idea to like it happening and being real in the world. And that takes an intense amount of energy and concentration and focus. And so like the mantra there is like focus, 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 and then focus more. And there's a lot of things to focus on, but you're focusing on the small wins. You're focusing on your output because that's what you can control. You are not in a place to be measuring and balancing the input yet. This is a new idea. To bring anything new into the world, you got to put a lot out, right? And so, but slowly, that concentration phase can last a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years, depending on how large the initiative is. But eventually you'll start to see things come back. And if it doesn't, then maybe it is wise to pivot and move on. Or some hard-headed people just, try and beat a dead horse. But whatever it is, like at some point, assuming there's, marketplace demand and it works, like you'll get to a place of what we call momentum, right? Which is like you start the output that you're putting out there, it's starting to come back almost in a one-to-one fashion. And so now you need to start creating processes and systems. And the kind of mantra there is turnaround, right? You want to create a turnaround so that it's not where you were talking about those clients, like you get a new client in that concentration phase, you need to focus on them, make sure they're incredibly happy. But when you've got 100 clients, you can't give that exact same, you need a different process. You can give them a similar feel, but the amount of time that you spend might be different. And so, and then there's, after momentum, there's stabilization, and then it becomes kind of a business as usual, right? Where it's just the norm. And so there is this progression, right? And everybody just wants to start and have it be stable, but like you're skipping out on a bunch of phases to get there. So I think that's an important concept I work with people on, to understand where they are. It helps give them perspective and what to focus on in the right
Yeah.
times.
And I actually think for smaller businesses, it's that they haven't even thought about where it can go. All they're thinking about is, I'm having success, I'm making money, it's profitable. And they haven't thought, well, do I want to get this to $10 million? Do I want it to be $50 million? Do I want to sell? Do I want to start acquiring other companies? And they don't, a lot of times when I'm having these conversations, they haven't even thought about this stuff. So I think what you do is you actually bring those conversations to the forefront, which is what we like to do as well. But then putting a process in place and naming where they're at and where they go next. I think that's really important for business owners to see that picture as well. Um, so yeah, the right now while you're working on your other business venture that you're getting into next, are there still clients that you're going to be working with on the consulting side?
Yeah,
And
sure.
if people want to find you, how would they actually find you?
LinkedIn.
Yeah,
LinkedIn's good, or you can email me. It's
yeah,
justin@pinesight.biz.
yeah,
Um, my last name's Pines. Pine Sight. I don't know. A little play on words.
yeah,
Is my company. But yeah, I mean, I'm taking a select few clients as I get into a new endeavor. I don't want to overwhelm myself, and I want to make sure I have enough space with some of my other things going on too.
yep,
But yeah, I mean, there's nothing like helping a small business owner. I mean, like the woman who ran my kids' gymnastics studio. She was a friend of mine, and she had asked me when I was starting my business, like what my prices were, and when I told her, she was like, "All right, let's do it." And I was surprised, and then excited, and I've helped her. She was in a state of chaos. Like, she had 29 employees. She was approaching $1 million in revenue, which was awesome. Her gym was pretty much full. And, we really started with like creating this full picture of what she saw. And that included expansion. It included, kind of getting out some of the toxic employees and things she'd tolerated for a long time, both personally and professionally.
mm-hmm,
And so, I appreciate that balance. I think, like, especially as a founder led business, like, you are your business. And so you need a certain awareness and an understanding of how you show up and how that permeates in all areas of your life. And so, at this point, when we stopped working together at the end of last year, I'd fulfilled the contract. She was in a stable position, an incredible relationship personally. Uh, all of her employees were gone. She found this incredible hire who basically was like allowing her to take a big step back
yep.
and go on vacations and spend more time with her family. And it was just in an amazing spot. And like when we started that, I knew that was possible, but it was really cool to see like in 6 months
Yeah.
all that come to fruition. So those are the kinds of things I love to do.
That's another point I would say that it's an important lesson I've had, and I think it's an important lesson for other business owners is that um, start paying for things before you actually need them. So, like her saying, "Yeah, I'm willing to make this
Well,
payment."
so I asked her, I was like, why do you want? And she was like, I just realized like I need to like level up. I need to level up with people who know what they're doing, with people who have an understanding far beyond mine. I didn't go to business school. I mean, she's got an incredible story how she
Mm-hmm.
started this thing. And she's got grit beyond like if she was an employee, I would hire her immediately, right? She is just like determined and has that fortitude,
Yeah,
which is very hard to teach. And so, but like all these other business skills, those are teachable and learnable and like,
you can watch Shark Tank.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
right.
So, but to your point, like, I love that. And it's something that I think a lot of small business owners, they get into it because of the passion and all that. And like when they layer on the knowledge and they carve out the time to actually look into the future, like
Mm-hmm.
ask those questions you were saying, like, where do I want to go? What kind of lifestyle do I want to live? Like, the worst thing is to get out of like a corporate or difficult life and get into like a business that you're a slave to, right?
Yeah.
Like unless you absolutely love that,
Yeah,
it's hard. So,
for
like
sure.
the E-Myth, I think we were talking about
Yeah,
that book, right? Like the
yeah.
pie making or whatever that business is. That's the
It's a
example.
great book. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a short read. I think all business owners should read it if they are still in that growth phase. It's going from a specialist to a manager to an owner, and it's all the different phases and names them. But so I don't want to promote them too much. They don't give me any royalties, but no.
No. Well, there is another book that I think is worth reading. It's called The Five Types of Wealth by a guy named Sahil Bloom, and he was a a Goldman or investment banker guy, and just kind of got fascinated with not just financial wealth, but somebody made a comment to him when he was like out in California. His parents were on the East Coast, and it was some comment like, "Oh, how often do you see your parents?" And he was like, "Oh, once a year." He was like, "Oh, so you'll see them like 15 more times before they die." And he was just like, "Wait, what?" And that reality hit him in a big way. And so I like that because it kind of covers like social wealth, obviously economic wealth, but wealth in time and freedom and agency and the wealth of your relationships, and so I think kind of all that together really embodies the quality of your life. And
Yeah.
there's no right answer to it. It's kind of like an evaluation, and what levels do you want those things to be at, and what's
Yeah,
going
it's
to give
funny.
you fulfillment.
I don't know if it was somebody from that book or not. It was a CEO who was talking about how he made a commitment to call his mother every week and meet her in face to face once a week. So he'd call her every day, meet her face to face once a week, and he made that commitment 2 years before she passed. And he was like, "It's the best thing I ever did." And I actually do a similar thing with my mother because I was never thinking about that. I was like, "Yeah, your most important relationships, you want to prioritize them." But, um, and I think that that was really valuable. But at any rate, the any last thoughts that you want to leave with any of these business owners that might be listening or watching?
I think probably the most important thing, especially on the hardest days, is just to remember like why you got into it.
Hmm.
Um, you know, the reason I was a management consultant for 15 years, and I actually left the city of Chicago to move to Philly to join the consulting firm that I was at because I believed really deeply in what they were doing. And I remember I stopped the COO one day in the hallway, and I was having a tough time, and it was like a tough time in the company. And I remember asking her, like, how do you like weather the tough times and the bad storms? And she was like, I just always reconnect to the purpose of why I'm doing this. And so if you haven't done that in a while, I would say do that,
Yeah.
and think about it. And if it's gone, then it might be time to reconsider, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that either. I think reinvention is healthy. But if that purpose is still within you and you're still passionate about it but frustrated, then you got to find another way to do things, because
Hmm.
doing the same thing over and over and over again, if it's not working, it's not going to suddenly work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can call me, or or anybody else. There's a lot of good people who can help. So.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you joining us today. I hope that those listening got something out of this. Obviously, if you want to get a hold of Justin, it's Justin Pines on LinkedIn or Justin at pinesite.com, .biz,
Yep.
excuse me. And then obviously for us, evolution, fg.com if you want to get a hold of us and ask any questions. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.